This is Dave, NZ1J. This video is going to demonstrate how to set up a NanoVNA to do SWR measurements on an antenna. So this is the setup. I have a second video that shows you how to recall the setup from memory and look at the parameters. So what we have right here is a 4-inch NanoVNA, and it's set to the default settings. This is what came with it. So the frequency range is very wide, from very, very low to very, very high. And we have 4 different traces turned on, and none of them are doing SWR. So we're going to do the setup now to get it ready to do SWR. So you tap here on the screen, get a menu, and we're going to say display. And then under display, we're going to say trace. There are 4 traces, they're color-coded. The purple, we don't need it all. I'm only going to set up 3 traces, so I'm going to just turn that one off. Trace 0 is set, is selected. You can see the check mark. We go back. We're going to format it. There's 2 methods of operating a NanoVNA. One, this lower port sends out a signal, and the upper port receives the signal. That would be if you wanted to pass a signal through something like a filter. For SWR, we only use the upper port. So it's going to be the reflected setting. So we choose reflected. And now, what do you want to display? Well, SWR. So we look over here, and it now says that the yellow display, the yellow trace is SWR, and it's set to 450 milli per division. So the bottom would be an SWR of 1:1. This would be a quarter of a unit. So SWR 1.25, 1.5, 1.75. That may not be the best scale. So let's go back to scale, change the scale. Here's scale, and we want to tell it scale per division. How many units per division? So we're going to just say 1 unit, enter. Now, when we look up here, SWR is 1. So now 1:1 is the bottom, next 2:1, 3:1, the top would be 9:1. You can change those settings, but I find these work pretty well. So that's the first trace is set. Bring up the menu again, back to trace. Let's choose the second trace, back, format it for reflected. And this one, I'd like to be resistance, because an antenna has resistance, reactance, and that resistance and reactance both combine to make SWR. So I'm set to resistance, back, scale. Actually, we don't need to change the scale. It came up with 100 ohms per division. That's really quite good. We go back one more time, back to display, trace. Choose the third trace, and this one will have reactance. So back, format, reactance. And again, it came out to 100 ohms per division, which is what we want. So there's our first setting. We now have 3 traces, and the 3 traces give us SWR, reactance of the antenna, and resistance of the antenna, all parameters you want to see. Next thing is we set what the NanoVNA refers to as stimulus. This is the range of frequencies over which it's going to work. Now, we're still set to the default. Here's 50 kilohertz in the lower left, 900 megahertz in the lower right. We want to set it to some radio band. So we type stimulus. There's several ways to do this. Here's an easy way to do it. Set the start and stop frequencies. Let's do the stop frequency first. Let's say we wanted to do the 20-meter band, which is centered around 14 megahertz. So why don't we scan 12? Instead, let's scan 13 to 15 megahertz. So we're setting the stop frequency. So 1.5, M for mega. And now we look down here, 15 megahertz. It's pretty much more of the same. We're going to set the start frequency, 13 mega. So we now have the stimulus set to the right range, and we have 3 traces set. There is also a cursor. The cursor is seen here, and there's no reason to leave it there. When we recall the memory, it's going to recall the cursor. So let's just kind of grab that and slide it over to about here. And now the cursor is set within the amateur radio 20-meter band. So now we've got the stimulus, the cursor, the traces. In order for a NanoVNA to do its job, it has to be calibrated. But the calibration only has to be done once, and then we're going to save everything into memory. When the memory is recalled, the calibration will come back with it. So we select the menu, go back. Here's calibrate. Oddly, under calibrate, we choose calibrate again. For SWR, which only uses the one port, we only have to do 3 calibrations: open, short, and load. So we have these 3 adapters. They look something like this. This one has no center pin. That's the open. I'm going to thread this onto the port. And this is going to tell the NanoVNA what an open looks like. Press the open, wait a couple of seconds. Now it's calibrated. We got the check mark. Take off the open adapter and put on the short adapter. And the short is also a gold adapter, but it does have a center pin. Once that's on, we just touch short. Wait a few seconds, we've got the check mark. Short is now calibrated. And now the load, there's a 50 ohm adapter, which would be a standard load for a standard antenna system. This one has a little bit of silver on it, so they're easy to tell apart. Touch load. A couple of seconds, now they're all set. Then we simply say done. When we say done, it's offering us the opportunity to save it in memory. I've also already got a few things set in memory. I'm going to overwrite this one. And there it is. So let's check it. Bring up the menu. We want recall, which is not on this menu. We go back. Here's recall. This is going to recall a memory. We've got a memory set here, 13 to 15 megahertz. And then touch here to get rid of the menu. And you can see SWR is about 1, reactance is near 0, resistance is near 50 ohms. So that is set. Here is a trick that will help you do the rest of the bands. Once the traces are set, rather than set them again and again to do the 15-meter band, the 10-meter band, just recall them, as I just did now. Once it's recalled, all we have to do is change the stimulus. So if I were to change the stimulus to, say, 30 megahertz, I'm bringing up the menu again, change the start, make it, say, 26 megahertz. Now, the traces were already set from the last SWR measurement system that I created, and I've recalled that, and then on top of that, we just reset the stimulus, and then, of course, you would want to move the cursor again. So this is a little redundant what I'm showing you now. And then for every band, you have to calibrate and save to memory. This 4-inch NanoVNA has 7 memories. The 3-inch unit has 5 memories, just barely enough. So I think that's everything you need to know to set up the system for SWR. And as I said, I have a companion video that will just show you actually making a SWR measurement after recalling the settings from memory.